Good evening, I'm Eugene Chan with Straight Talk. Our guest tonight is Professor Thomas陳文鴻. He is the director of the One Belt One Road Research Center at Zhuhai College. He is an academic researcher and has undertaken a range of research projects for the Hong Kong SAR government on various topics, including Hong Kong's role in the One Belt One Road strategy, which was mentioned in President Xi Jinping's recent speech in Hong Kong. We have invited Professor Chan tonight to tell us what his research says where Hong Kong will be in 10 years' time. Welcome, Thomas.
Good.
Right, Thomas, before we go on and ask you what Hong Kong will be in 10 years, maybe it's a very quick question. In your view, how has Hong Kong fared the last 25 years? Has it been successful?
I think that Hong Kong has not done much in the last 25 years. Hong Kong has not adjusted to its new role as part of China under the one country, two system regime. And that means even though there was some growth in Hong Kong's economy, but it has not adjusted itself to new challenges. And therefore, the achievement was much less than we expected.
You know, people from Hong Kong or the rest of the world always say Hong Kong is a very successful city because Hong Kong people are very resilient, very hardworking, the mindset is very fast. But when you said Hong Kong has not been successful, it's quite a contrary to what people believe. What backs you up in that statement?
Well, in the past, before the handover, Hong Kong depends very much on a very favorable environment that's set up by the British and America. And Hong Kong has one advantage, the first mover advantage in the 1950s, when there was a transplantation of Chinese industry to Hong Kong. So at that time, Hong Kong is competing with Japan. But in the process, you can see that Hong Kong could not compete with Japan, and it started to compete with Korea, Taiwan. And recently, I think Hong Kong is also lagging behind them. And that means Hong Kong still has some growth, but the growth is not impressive compared with the neighboring economies.
But if you look at International Financial Center, we have maintained number 3 in the world. That must be an achievement.
It depends very much on the growth of China. In Hong Kong, we have the International Financial Center. But the money used in this financial center has come mainly from China, not so much from international. So it's because of the growth of China that Hong Kong can become a major financial center in the world. Without China factor, Hong Kong may not be have such a kind of position.
Right. Just now, you mentioned Hong Kong hasn't adopted the role very well when under the one country, two system. Why do you say that?
Well, Hong Kong has not integrated effectively with the economy of China. This doesn't mean that Hong Kong will be taken over by China mainland. But Hong Kong had to adjust its competitive advantage with areas next to it, like the Shenzhen, Guangzhou, so that we can have some sort of synergy to achieve better results for both Hong Kong and the Pearl River Delta region.
You know, Hong Kong has always, as I said earlier, Hong Kong people always feel that we're doing well. Maybe, do you think, is this the complacency of Hong Kong people thinking that we're doing very well? Do you think this is the major factor why we haven't progressed as much as we should have been?
That's one factor. The other factor is that Hong Kong is not aware of the development around it. For example, Singapore used to be very much behind Hong Kong. Because it's a smaller economy, but now it's both, in terms both of GDP and per capita GDP, it has overtaken Hong Kong already. So compared with Singapore, we are not doing very well. And we are not sure about the success of Singapore because we are not looking at Singapore squarely.
Since you mentioned Singapore, in the last few shows, we often talk about Singapore. I mean, it is our neighboring city that we have a lot of friends and relatives who live in Singapore. We have been on good terms, but seems like we are losing a lot of talent recently, especially in the financial sector, to Singapore. Do you think that trend will continue, since you mentioned Singapore?
There's two factors that build up the economic growth of Singapore. One is that they use the China factor very well. It expands its population by inviting talents of mainland China. And also they have invested very much in the study and building up a relationship with mainland China. The second is very much within the American system. So with both advantage from mainland China and from America, it has a good foundation for further growth. But as for Hong Kong, we have the China factor is much more important than the Singapore. But we are facing the hostility of the G7 led by America.
Right. Since you mentioned Hong Kong we are right at the doorstep of a motherland. Surely, geographically, we have an absolute advantage, and there are a lot of I still remember a lot of the Hong Kong businesses do have branches in the mainland, and vice versa for mainland businesses to, and people move to Hong Kong and make Hong Kong an even more vibrant place in shopping and use our professional services. Has that attributed to the success of Hong Kong, although you say that we could have done better? Have we had some improvement?
Well, this has contributed to the growth of Hong Kong in the past decades, but it's a very limited effect on the future development of Hong Kong, because what we have gained is just the money, the surplus from the industrial processing trade, and also there was some money diverted from mainland to Hong Kong. Some of them are rather illegal in nature. And all this cannot help Hong Kong to build up its science and technology basis. And even for the revenues we get from industrial processing in the mainland, most of the money have devoted to speculation in the financial market or in the real estate market. They have not contributed to the improving the advantage, competitive advantage of Hong Kong. So in the longer term perspective, this money are useful but not very good for upgrading Hong Kong amidst the competition with other countries, other economies.
So thank you for bringing that honest perspective. This is what Straight Talk wants to hear. One interesting observation, I remember that a few years ago, people were talking about Hong Kong. History repeats itself. Like the city of Venice used to be a very vibrant commercial city, but things changed, and now it's just become a very touristy old town. Will the downturn of Hong Kong is sort of inevitable, or it can still be changed, according to your view?
In the case of Venice, it went down in history because it had lost the trade revenue from trading with China, the Silk Road trade. But in the case of Hong Kong, even in the future, we will still enjoy very much the benefit of the China factor. With China growing even faster than before, larger by size and also by its capability, Hong Kong should be able to benefit from it. But it depends very much on how Hong Kong grasps the opportunities.
Right. So going back to the title of our show tonight, where do you see Hong Kong in 10 years? Just now you have mentioned Hong Kong hasn't integrated as well as it should be for the future development, but we still benefit because we are still right at the doorstep of our motherland. So where do you see us in 10 years' time?
Hong Kong will have a slow growth in the coming year if there's no major change of its industrial and also economic structure. But given the growth of China and also the expansion of the Belt and Road Initiative, Hong Kong should be able to get the benefits of participating in the expansion of China's economy, both spatially and also structurally. But I'm not sure whether Hong Kong will take up the opportunity. It depends very much on the efforts of the Hong Kong people, whether they are willing and have the knowledge to engage in this kind of activities of restructuring and upgrading the Hong Kong's economy towards the greater world.
What will be the main obstacle? You just mentioned it depends on Hong Kong people, but Hong Kong people, we are all individuals. What can we do? Does it have to be a government-led initiative so that we will engage with mainland's economy and getting Hong Kong to right on the fast train?
I think in the past decade, Hong Kong has been too much content with its own achievement. It had not looked at the world's changes. And in the coming years, there will be hostility of the G7 led by America against China, mainland, and also against Hong Kong. So there will be a difficulty, say, in the coming years. But it depends very much on the efforts of the government. If we can mobilize our resources within Hong Kong and with the support of the central government, I think all this hardship could be overcome.
Before we go to a break, I want to ask you, President Xi was here recently, and he reiterated Hong Kong must build on our connection with the rest of the world and our unique status. Are we doing that already? Of course, with COVID now, we can't do very much. Can you see Hong Kong still have a role to do what President Xi has, hopefully we can do for the whole nation?
Hong Kong has been very much in contact with the G7, America, Britain, and all these European countries. But they will not be the center of the economic growth of the world in the future. So what Hong Kong needs, as President Xi advised, Hong Kong should engage in relationship with other countries, the West of the West. That means the so-called the new G8.
Oh, the G8, the new G8. What is the new G8 for the viewers' interest?
China, Russia, India, Brazil, South Africa, and also there will be also Indonesia, Argentina, and maybe also Mexico.
All right, maybe we will have a break, and we will be right back. Welcome back. With us tonight is Professor Thomas Chan, and we have been talking about Hong Kong's fundamentals to success and what we must do if we want to still have a success story to tell in 10 years. So, Professor, in the first half, you make it very clear and being very honest to people, to the viewers, saying that Hong Kong could have done better, that we have been too complacent, and we need to change. And also, you're saying the international factors is affecting Hong Kong quite considerably, even more so than before, and we could concentrate on the G8 issues mentioned, which include the motherland. Our world has experienced unprecedented challenges with the COVID outbreak, but recently, say for Hong Kong, all the geopolitical tensions between motherland and US has caused a lot of tensions, sanctions, and not to mention the recent war between Russia and Ukraine. So, as a Hong Kong person, how shall we look at all this, and how will they affect Hong Kong, and what we can do to counteract all the side effects?
We should be aware that the competition between China and the US will continue and may even worsen in the coming years. And that means Hong Kong will face the hostility of the G7 led by the US. And Hong Kong has been emerged itself very much into the American system. With the hostility from America, not to mention the sanctions and other measures against Hong Kong, Hong Kong needs to find an alternative to the way that we deal with other countries.
Professor, as just mentioned, the recent happenings such as increased energy costs, increased inflation, like US, over 9%, the US interest rate going up, US dollar going up. In a way, Hong Kong dollars is worth more money. Is that helping Hong Kong?
It depends. The situation seems to be going into a global financial crisis, triggered by the situation in America and Europe. But Hong Kong will be affected. But it depends very much on Hong Kong's working with the mainland to defend the local financial system. I don't think the financial crisis will spread to Hong Kong, provided we have working closely with the mainland. And that means it will create an opportunity for Hong Kong. We had looked at the situation in the G7 clearly, that it may not be the future of the world or future of the Hong Kong's development. So Hong Kong had to shift to its focus on other countries, other emerging markets. And at a time when the world is not so much favorable in terms of business environment, Hong Kong may use the link with mainland China to achieve a better result in setting up a relationship with this kind of countries.
Right, Professor, a term that we use a lot in the last few years is globalization. But looks like we are moving to another term called deglobalization and increased protectionism. So where does that Hong Kong? Will that make Hong Kong more vulnerable than before? Because we do have played a very important role and an external gateway to the rest of the world. How do you see that?
I think we have to look clearly at the process of globalization now taking place in the world. There's a de-globalization, mostly started from the G7, especially America, whereas the rest of the countries in the world are still engaged in each other. There's still a process of globalization going on. And with China's Belt and Road initiative, you can see that globalization have moved faster in Central Asia, in West Asia, even in Africa, and as well as in South America. So you can see the world is divided in two parts. For the G7, the advanced countries, there's a deglobalization. And with the deglobalization, I think the isolation will hurt the economy and society very much. And the other part is the rest of the world. They are going on globalization and linking up each other to achieve a greater synergy. And so it makes Hong Kong facing a choice to work still with G7, to go down with them, or to work with the rest of the world, which is going up further.
Right. Recently, Financial Secretary Paul Chan had said that he has been concluding trade agreements with more trading partners. Is that enough to help Hong Kong to start moving away, I won't say moving away, sort of a less reliance on the traditional economies that we work with?
The trade agreement will be useful, but it depends very much on our own capability. If we have nothing to offer, then even we have a very favorable trade agreement, it will not help the economy in Hong Kong. So what Hong Kong needs is that we have to upgrade our economy. We have to re-industrialize. Not so much the labor-intensive industry, but all those R&D intensive industry, just like what has been done in major advanced countries. So we have to build up our research intensive industry. And secondly, we have to link up with other countries so that we can serve as a hub. Not only a gateway into China, but a hub of East Asia, Southeast Asia. Recently, I think the Chinese China-Europe Express train service had linked up Europe and also the other part of Asia. Hong Kong can engage in it and take advantage of the wide network built up by the Chinese mainland.
Right. Professor, what you're saying is, apart from having one of our core strengths is being a major international financial center, we have looked at industrialization, such as the IT or the development. Is that why presidency has spent his limited stay in Hong Kong in the science park? Is that what the motherland sort of hopes Hong Kong will develop in the area?
The financial center depends very much on the local economy and also the link with other parts of the world. So the R&D with intensive industries are a major factor for boosting up the financial services, as well as there's a logistic and trade hub functions for Hong Kong. So the presidency is willing to see Hong Kong to perform a new function, not so much to serve as a gateway into China so that the foreign companies can earn money from China, but rather you serve the expansion and development of China. And so that you will be using our resources to link up the world much better than other cities within China.
And another method that we often talk about in Straight Talk is about the Western rhetoric. I mean, Hong Kong people are now realize there is a constant smearing campaign against Hong Kong. And Chief Executive John Lee has said that his government will be bold and proactive in speaking up against the smearing by foreign forces. Are you confident we'll be able to pass the message to the world that this rhetoric doesn't affect Hong Kong as much as it did?
It's not easy because the world opinion has been dominated by the U.S. It will take quite a lot of effort to turn over the situation. But what Hong Kong needs is that we have to overhaul its education and also its lifelong learning process, so that a proper perspective will be instilled into the pupil. I think this is the fundamental basis for Hong Kong people to see its role as a part of China to achieve it under the one country, two system regime. You have to understand our past and our present, and also the possibility of future that we can make our effort into it.
Professor, since you mentioned one country, two system, some countries in the world, especially US, said Hong Kong is moving towards one country, one system, but we know that that's not true. So the momentum of development is another matter that profession said that we must continue to do, including the Greater Bay Area, which I've talked about, and also the 14th Five-Year Plan. But one very important area that I think you're an expert is One Belt, One Road, that you are now the director of the Research Institute. Can you tell the viewers, in short, what is One Belt, One Road, and how Hong Kong can participate? Because it seems like they're quite far away to me.
The Belt and Road is actually a revival of the historical Silk Road. And the Silk Road in the last few centuries have become a globalized system, incorporating not just Afro-Eurasia, but also Americas. And so it is in fact China's version of globalization. And China's government had put quite a lot of effort into it, but it's not it's also allowing other countries to participate. So you can see recently there was a massive infrastructure investment by the EU, which I understand is to link up with China's network in Eurasia. And so this is the way China and the rest of the world build up a networking system for the whole world, so that there's a trade, there was a cultural exchange, there was technology transfer, etc.
But how can Hong Kong people take part of it and be a benefactor out of this great initiative of the old Silk Road?
So we had to invite people and companies from the Belt and Road countries to Hong Kong, and also we reach out to them. The fundamental starting point is that we have to know about the situation. So far, we know much about America and also the so-called G7 countries, but we know very little about Belt and Road countries.
But it looks like Hong Kong hasn't done a lot in terms of doing this, have we?
Not yet. For example, at the珠海College, we have started 2 master programs on Belt and Road countries, and we have attracted quite a lot of students from mainland and also from Hong Kong. So you need to do something.
All right. Right, many thanks to Professor Chan for sharing with us his outlook on where Hong Kong is heading in 10 years' time and how we can take full advantage of the one country, two system, which President Xi Jinping said is here to stay to ensure a prosperous and stable Hong Kong. Have a good week and good night.